I should have felt lucky just to be landing, but all I could think about was how much everything hurt. My name is Neil Hargrave. I'm 48 years old, and until this morning, I was one of the top aerospace engineers in North America. I live in Boulder, Colorado, or did anyway. Now I wasn't so sure where I belonged. The flight from Dubai touched down just after sunrise. The Denver tarmac dusted with a film of frost. My body felt like it had been through a war. Jet lag was chewing at my skull, but I couldn't afford to stop moving. Not today. It was my birthday. Not that anyone remembered. Not that I cared anymore. I pulled into the lot of the defense contractor headquarters at 8:12 a.m., 30 minutes before the emergency board meeting. Just enough time to look at myself in the rearview mirror and hate what I saw. Puffy eyes, graying temples, a tie I hadn't properly straightened since Abu Dhabi customs. The executive elevator ride was silent. Not even the receptionist gave me a nod. I already knew. They'd made up their minds. This was just the execution. The room was cold, literally and metaphorically. Frosted glass, stiff suits, and a long oak table that might as well have been a guillotine. 8 board members, 2 lawyers, 1 HR rep, and me. Neil, said Gilmore, the CFO. Thanks for coming in on such short notice. I sat down without shaking a hand. Cut the pleasantries, Gil. Just say it. His mouth twitched. After a thorough review, the board has decided to terminate your employment effective immediately. I nodded. Not even a flinch. Your authorization of the Falconer drone prototype, he continued, was not only premature, but financially reckless. The AI loadouts you approved were based on future capabilities, not existing ones. They were weeks away. We don't pay for weeks away. We pay for what works. And you spent $250 million on a machine that still can't identify a moving target through haze. Because we ran out of time. I snapped, my voice echoing across the glass walls. You pulled field testing after 4 months. The HR rep gently slid a folder across the table. Your severance package is included here. It's generous. $832,000. That was the number. They didn't say it out loud, but I'd already peeked at the documents before stepping inside. I was smart enough to know when someone was trying to buy my silence. You're free to stay in the company hotel through Sunday, she added. I stood, slipping the envelope into my briefcase without looking. I designed that prototype to save soldiers' lives. You turned it into a PR liability the second it made the wrong investor nervous. They didn't respond. None of them. That night, I sat alone in the hotel bar. Room key on the counter. Scotch in hand. CNN on mute above the bartender's shoulder. The news ticker was still running stories about autonomous ethics and defense spending cuts. They'd hung me out to dry. And still, somewhere deep in my gut, I knew there was something worse waiting at home. Something I didn't even want to put words to yet. I drained the glass and whispered to no one, "Happy birthday." The driveway was cluttered with leaves and a tipped-over scooter. One of Gracie's, probably. The porch light was on, even though it was barely 4 in the afternoon. I stood there for a moment, suitcase in hand, just staring at the front door. I hadn't told Leslie I was coming home early. Part of me wanted to catch her off guard. The other part didn't want to walk through that door at all. When I finally did, the smell hit me first, something sour underneath the usual vanilla air freshener. Dishes were stacked in the sink. The trash was full. The laundry basket in the hallway had overflowed into 2 separate piles on the floor. Shoes were everywhere. It looked like a house someone had stopped trying to manage. "Dad?" a voice called out. Then footsteps. Owen rounded the corner, his hair sticking up, socks mismatched, face lighting up the second he saw me. "Hey, bud," I said, crouching down as he barreled into me. "You're home." His arms clung tight around my neck. "You weren't supposed to be back until Monday." I ruffled his hair. Plans changed. Gracie came running next, nearly slipping in the hallway. She crashed into my side like a little cannonball, arms wrapped around my waist. "I made you something for your birthday. Wait here, okay?" I nodded and watched her scamper up the stairs. Owen pulled back and looked up at me. "Did you bring anything from Dubai?" "Yeah," I said, trying to smile. "Some chocolate and a weird little robot thing." "Cool," he grinned. "Mom's been super stressed. Like, crying a lot stressed." My throat tightened. "Where is she now?" "Upstairs. On the phone, I think." I found her in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with the blinds half drawn. She had her work laptop open beside her and her phone pressed to her ear. She didn't see me at first. "No, I'll have the projections finalized by Friday," she was saying. We just need one more client to commit before the next phase. Her eyes flicked up and widened when she saw me in the doorway. I have to call you back, she said quickly and ended the call. We stared at each other for a moment. Then she stood, rubbing her eyes like she was trying to wipe away a hangover. I forgot it was today, she said quietly. Your birthday. I'm sorry. I nodded. It's okay. It wasn't. But what was the point of saying so? I wasn't expecting you back until... I know. We went downstairs. The kids had pulled together some kind of dinner, peanut butter sandwiches, grapes, and microwave mac and cheese. It felt like a feast. They were so excited to see me, talking over each other, showing me drawings and little paper airplanes and a half-built Lego spaceship on the table. Then Gracie ran into the living room and returned with a small wrapped box. It's from both of us, she beamed. Inside was a vintage-style aviator watch, the kind with the old brass casing and stitched leather band. My throat caught. Where did you get this? I asked, stunned. We found it at the antique place, Owen said proudly. Mom helped us buy it. Leslie smiled faintly. They saw it weeks ago and wouldn't stop talking about it. That night, after the kids went to bed, Leslie curled up next to me on the couch. She started crying softly, barely above a whisper. I'm tired, Neil, she said. I know you've been working. I know you're trying. But I've been here alone. Every week. Every night. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to ask the questions I was afraid to hear answers to. She didn't say the word lonely, but it was in the room with us. Sitting between us like a third person. Uninvited and undefeated. I held her, but something about the way she sobbed, quiet and practiced, made me feel like she'd cried like this before. Maybe more than once. Maybe every night. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Leslie whispering in the hallway. No, he got in last night. Yeah, I know. She was on the phone, pacing just out of sight. Her voice dropped even lower. I'm trying to stay calm, but I can't talk long. He's in the kitchen. The floor creaked as I stepped into view. She froze. Okay, I'll call you back, she said into the phone quickly and hung up before I could see who it was. She tried to smile. Didn't mean to wake you. Who was that? I asked. She opened the fridge and didn't look at me. Just someone from work. Beck wants numbers finalized by Friday. Randall Beck. I'd heard his name 100 times over the years. Her boss, her mentor, supposedly some genius in renewable energy. I used to like him, back when I only knew him through her stories. But lately, his name felt like something sour in the back of my throat. You talk to him a lot outside of work hours? I asked. Leslie shut the fridge a little too hard. He's sick, Neil. Like, actually sick. Stage 4. I'm helping with the transition. I didn't say anything, just watched her start a pot of coffee like it was any other Thursday morning. Her hands were shaking. Later that day, I took Owen out to run a few errands. I told Leslie I just needed to get some air, but really, I wanted time alone with my son. He sat in the passenger seat, swinging his legs. Mom's been super busy lately, he said. We've been going to Randall's house a lot. He has a really nice pool. I gripped the wheel tighter. You've been over there? Yeah, he said casually. Zoe's fun. That's his daughter. We watched movies and ate pizza one night. I think Mom fell asleep on the couch. I nodded slowly, my stomach turning. How often have you gone over there? Owen shrugged. A few times. Like, when you were in Germany. Or maybe it was Dubai. That told me everything. It had become a pattern. A routine. Later, while waiting for a prescription pickup at the pharmacy, I saw them. Randall Beck and Leslie were walking out of the adjacent medical building, side by side. He looked thin, fragile. His once dark hair had turned white, and his eyes seemed too big for his face. Leslie was holding his arm. He paused on the sidewalk, and she reached up to fix the collar of his coat. The gesture was too soft, too familiar. Neither of them saw me. I ducked behind a support pillar and watched until they got in her car and drove off. When I got back to the house, I sent a message to the only person I trusted with the gut-level paranoia starting to boil up inside me. Clarence Wright, my old mentor and a retired naval intelligence officer. I typed slowly. Need eyes on Leslie Hargrave and Randall Beck. Quiet and fast. Discretion essential. A few minutes later, Clarence replied. Understood. I know a guy. Give me a day. That night, Leslie made chicken and rice and acted like everything was fine. But I noticed she never looked me in the eyes. And I couldn't shake the feeling that something had cracked open, and it wasn't going to close back up. I didn't sleep much after that night. My body was still in Colorado, but my mind was stuck in that moment behind the pillar watching Leslie and Randall like I wasn't her husband but a stranger. Like I didn't recognize her anymore. By the following evening, Clarence sent me a secure message. A private investigator named Peter Grayson would be in touch. The guy had done contract work for the DoD back in the day. Discreet. Efficient. The kind of man who didn't waste words or leak intel. 2 days later, I met Grayson in the back booth of a cafe outside Arvada. He slid a plain brown envelope across the table. "Everything you asked for," he said, no preamble. Inside were still shots, credit card logs, and a detailed timeline. Leslie had been seeing Randall on and off for nearly 2 years, not just for work. Dinner reservations. Hotel check-ins. 2 conferences where Randall never actually booked a room because he stayed in hers. And one grainy photo that made my chest go ice cold. Randall, pale and coughing, leaning against Leslie as they exited a wellness clinic in Telluride. Her hand was on his chest, her face buried against his shoulder. She wasn't comforting him. She was clinging to him. I didn't let myself react. Just nodded and slipped the folder into my coat. "Cancer's real," Grayson added. "Stage 4. Confirmed through hospital records. He's got months left. Maybe less." The rage hit me later, not in a single wave, but in steady pulses. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, had wrapped herself around a dying man while I flew back and forth across the globe, trusting her. Trusting the life we built. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw plates. I was going to plan. First step? I opened a private trading entity using the severance money they handed me like a parting apology. I named it Stone Halo Capital, a little dark, a little poetic. Through a VPN and a dummy front, I began trading in defense-adjacent technologies, unmanned aerial patents, data stream processors, sensor calibration firms. Risky. Unregulated. But I knew this world like the back of my hand. The returns were fast and sharp. Within a month, I doubled my principal. By the second, I was sitting on just under $2 million in liquid reserves. Money I would never let Leslie touch again. While the trades ran in the background, I dug deeper into Randall Beck's world. His nonprofit division, Solar Pathways, looked squeaky clean on the surface: public talks, mentorship seminars, glossy promo reels with local politicians smiling on podiums. But Clarence flagged something odd. They were buying land, rural properties in northern Colorado, some already zoned for retreats or residential centers. And a new acquisition, quietly pushed through under a shell company, was marked for a women's mentorship center. Press releases hadn't gone out yet, but I could read between the lines. This was legacy building. Randall knew he was dying. He wanted to go out with one last headline, one final monument to his goodness. Too bad he had an enemy now. I stared at the deed papers and made a decision. If Randall wanted a legacy, I'd make sure it burned before he got the chance to bask in it. I didn't need revenge in a courtroom. I needed it to come quietly from the inside. Because if Leslie could lie in whispers, so could I. Mara Collins wasn't hard to find. She'd done a short video 2 years ago on Solar Pathways' YouTube page, praising the mentorship program and thanking Randall Beck for changing her trajectory. Her real story, though, was buried in old comment threads and one blog post that had been taken down, a mix of vague disappointment and something darker she never quite named. She worked at a thrift store in Fort Collins now, lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above it. I drove up there one gray Thursday and told her I was a journalist working on a long-form podcast about environmental nonprofits. It was half true. I was building a story, just not the kind that aired on Spotify. Mara was 36, with sharp eyes and a nervous energy that never settled. She wasn't bitter, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from years of being patronized and pushed aside. "He never touched me," she said after our second meeting. Not like that. But it was all fake. The mentoring, the promises. He made you feel seen, then handed you off to someone who barely remembered your name. "What if you had a chance to talk about it?" I asked. "On your terms. Not a sob story. Just the truth." She hesitated. "What's the point?" "To help others like you," I said. "And to make sure no one else gets exploited under the Solar Pathways banner." She took a long sip from her chipped mug, then nodded. "Fine. But only if I'm anonymous." The anonymity part didn't last. I gave Mara a name to call, Vicky Danziger, a local public radio host I'd researched weeks before. Vicky hosted a live call-in segment every Friday called Open Wavelength. It reached thousands across northern Colorado. She wasn't a shock jock, just smart, steady, and sympathetic. Perfect. I sent the script to Mara the night before. A few light coaching notes. I didn't tell her how I found her old court documents. I didn't tell her that her real name would leak anyway. The call went live at 10:14 a.m. Hi, Mara's voice cracked on air. I used to be part of the Solar Pathways Mentorship Initiative, and I need to say something. She started soft, but built momentum fast. Talked about the broken promises. About being told she'd get career training, but ended up cleaning floors and answering phones in silence. About how Randall Beck smiled for photos but ignored every red flag in his own staff. Then came the line I'd written, the one I knew would detonate. Solar Pathways wasn't a mentorship program. It was a photo op factory. For people like me? It was emotional labor for free. The phone lines exploded. I watched the live stream from my office and counted 3 more women who called in within the hour, each with a variation of the same theme: silence, image control, burnout, exploitation. And then, right on cue, Zoe Beck called in. My father is dying, she said, her voice shaking. These accusations are cruel and inaccurate. Solar Pathways has helped hundreds of women. You don't get to hijack his legacy because you're bitter. But the damage was already done. Hashtags started trending by sundown. Hashtag SolarBurnMe. Hashtag Pathways to Nowhere. Hashtag False Mentor. I made sure the clips circulated. Reddit, TikTok, Facebook groups for local moms, young professionals, ex-employees of nonprofits. My fingerprints were nowhere. The next day, a blog post surfaced from another former mentee. Then a Medium essay. Then a whistleblower from within the administrative staff. The city council released a lukewarm statement of concern. Donors began pulling support. And Randall Beck? He hadn't even said a word yet. But I knew he was watching it all unravel. Slowly. Helplessly. Just like I planned. Because it only takes one spark to burn down a reputation. And I was holding the match. By the following week, Solar Pathways was in full damage control. Press conferences canceled. The board issued a statement about restructuring and reviewing internal practices. But it was too late. The name had become radioactive. At home, Leslie was unraveling. I found her one morning sitting on the kitchen floor, still in her robe, surrounded by crumpled printouts and half-empty coffee mugs. The TV was on mute, playing local coverage of the latest scandal fallout, the anchor's expression grim as she read the headline. Third former mentee alleges coercive practices at Solar Pathways. Leslie looked up at me with red, glassy eyes. This wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. I leaned against the doorway. But it did. She flinched like I'd hit her. Everything's falling apart, she murmured, fingers clenching around the mug in her lap. I didn't know. Not like this. Randall's daughter is being dragged through hell, and people think I was part of it. I didn't respond. I let the silence stretch, cold and thick. Then she did something I wasn't expecting. She started crying, not the quiet, restrained tears from a few nights ago. This was ugly, broken sobbing. Like her whole world had collapsed, and she just now realized she was buried underneath it. I loved him, she said between gasps. I didn't mean to, but I did. He filled something you left behind, Neil. I was alone all the time. I didn't even plan for it to happen. It just... I know, I said, cutting her off. She looked up, eyes searching mine. You. No. I know about everything. The hotels. The conferences. The mentorship. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I walked over and dropped a manila envelope on the table. Inside were the divorce papers, simple, clean, already signed by me. A custody agreement. No alimony. Shared visitation, but the kids would be staying with my father in Estes Park for the next 6 months. Stability. Distance. Her hands trembled as she opened the folder. You're serious, she whispered. I'm done, Leslie. She stood up, stumbling a little as she tried to steady herself. You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm setting you free. You chose someone else while I was thousands of miles away building a future for this family. Now you get to live in that choice. Her breath hitched. What am I supposed to do? Figure it out, I said coldly. Just like I did when you stopped answering my calls in Berlin. Just like I did when you told the kids you'd take them to Randall's lake house instead of visiting their grandfather. She pressed her hands against her mouth and backed into the counter. I watched her for a second longer, then turned toward the stairs. When the kids get back, I said without turning around, you'll have a schedule. We'll keep it clean, civil, but don't expect anything else from me. Leslie didn't say a word as I walked away. I heard her crying again later, somewhere between the kitchen and the laundry room. I didn't go to her. I sat on the couch and listened to the walls carry her pain. It didn't bring me peace, but it brought me clarity. She had made her move. Now she'd live in its wreckage. Randall Beck died 3 days later. It was a quiet Friday morning when I got the text from Clarence. Just one sentence. He's gone. No obituary had been published yet. No statement from Solar Pathways. No funeral announcement. It was like the man disappeared and the world barely noticed. Except I noticed. I put on a dark coat and drove to the hospital in Aurora where he'd been admitted under a private name. I walked through the side entrance, nodding to the nurse who was too tired to ask questions. Room 422. Palliative care. He looked like a husk of the man Leslie used to describe in late-night stories. His skin was pale, waxy. His hands lay motionless on the sheets. A nasal cannula still looped behind his ears, though it wasn't connected to anything anymore. Zoe was sitting in the corner. She didn't look up when I entered. "You shouldn't be here," she muttered. "I'm not here for you," I said flatly. She stood, face red and tired. My father didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve to be humiliated in his final weeks. "No," I said. "He deserved worse." Zoe looked like she might slap me, but instead she grabbed her coat and stormed past me, brushing my shoulder hard. I didn't move. I walked up to the bed and stared down at Randall Beck. "You ruined a lot of lives," I said quietly. "You wrapped it in charisma and good PR, but underneath all that, you were just a man who took what he wanted and left everyone else to clean it up." His eyes fluttered briefly. I wasn't sure if he could hear me, so I leaned in closer. "Just so you know," I said, my voice low, "I started the fire. All of it. The interviews. The call-ins. The blog posts. I whispered into every shadow you left behind. And when people came looking, they didn't find you. They found a pattern." His lip twitched slightly, like some small part of him was still clinging to awareness. "I didn't do it because you slept with my wife," I added. "I did it because you built a kingdom of mirrors and wanted the world to pretend it was made of glass." I walked out without looking back. By Monday, the cremation had already been handled. There was no public funeral, just a one-paragraph announcement on the Solar Pathways website about his vision and final chapter. The comments were locked. Within the month, lawsuits piled up. Former staffers, former mints, one ex-city councilwoman claiming donor fraud. The retreat land was seized for tax irregularities. Solar Pathways shut down. And the property in Greeley? I bought it. Anonymous holding company. Cash. 2 months later, it reopened as the Hargrave Center for Women in Crisis, named after my mother, a woman who spent her life working with abused women in the Denver school system and never once asked for credit. Leslie was granted scheduled visitation with Owen and Gracie, but no legal custody. No alimony. She filed a motion to renegotiate, but the judge denied it. Too many assets hidden. Too much bad faith. Her job let her go not long after that. Restructuring, they called it. She moved into a small duplex outside Erie. And just like that, Randall's legacy died with him. But mine had only begun. Fall settled over Boulder like a sigh. The trees along the street outside my new office turned a soft amber, and the air had that sharp edge that reminded me winter wasn't far off. Inside, the quiet hummed. No urgent phone calls. No press inquiries. No Leslie. It had been almost 4 months since Randall died. 3 since Solar Pathways shut its doors. And 2 since the Hargrave Center opened. Fully funded, fully anonymous. No photo ops. No gala dinners. Just services, shelter, and stability. The kind of legacy that didn't need headlines. My firm, Stone Halo Capital, was doing well. Better than well. The defense tech stocks I bought low during my recovery surged after a surprise contract awarded to a drone logistics firm I'd quietly backed. I had a team now. An office. Structure. Purpose. But peace? That came slower. The kids were adjusting. They'd been with my father in Estes Park for a while, and now they split time between his cabin and my place. Owen had grown quieter, more observant, but when he laughed, it was still pure. Gracie drew more. Pages full of robots and volcanoes and sometimes, me, with a square jaw and a red cape. Leslie had tried to spin the narrative, of course. Claimed I'd manipulated her, that I weaponized grief. She told her lawyer I'd turned the kids against her. Claimed I orchestrated Randall's fall because I was jealous of his legacy. But facts are facts. And the court had seen them all. Photos. Deposits. Emails. My legal groundwork was airtight. She got nothing. And still, she played the victim. Zoe Beck, once the darling of the Solar Board, had become toxic overnight. Lawsuits named her directly. Her public Instagram, Once a stream of polished photos with curated captions went dark. Her name disappeared from event panels. The fellowship offers dried up. Last I heard, she moved to a small town in New Mexico and scrubbed her entire digital footprint. And Randall? No tributes. No building in his name. No plaques. Just a man burned out of his own myth. Some days, I sat in my office with the blinds half closed and let the silence settle around me. I thought about how far I'd gone to tear it all down, and how easy it had been. Once I stopped trying to be the good man, my revenge had worked. Perfectly. Cleanly. But even when you win, revenge leaves something behind. A space where anger used to live. A quiet that feels less like peace and more like exile. The kids asked about their mom less now. They didn't hate her. They were just learning to live without her as a constant. And that kind of loss, it didn't show up all at once. It seeped in like fog. I had everything I wanted. Control. Justice. Victory. But at night, when the house was quiet and I poured a glass of whiskey, I wondered what the hell came next. Because sometimes, when the fire goes out, all you're left with is smoke. I ran into Mara, or rather, Leanne, her real name, on a chilly Saturday in late March. I'd just stepped out of a small bookstore on Pearl Street, flipping through a collection of essays I probably wasn't going to read, when I saw her coming out of a coffee shop across the way. She wore a red scarf, hair shorter now, and walked with a purpose I hadn't seen before. Leanne, I called out without thinking. She turned, startled, then relaxed when she recognized me. Didn't think you'd actually use my real name, she said with a smirk. I shrugged. You're not hiding anymore, are you? She walked over, hands deep in her coat pockets. We stood there for a second in that awkward quiet, like two people who'd shared something private without really knowing each other. I got a full-time position at the community center, she said. They needed a coordinator for their outreach programs. Benefits, actual salary, the works. That's good, I said. You deserve that. Leanne studied me for a moment. I've been meaning to reach out, she said. But I wasn't sure if I owed you a thank you or an apology. You don't owe me anything. She hesitated. I didn't lie exactly. But I didn't really feel exploited by Solar Pathways. I was just overlooked. I was mad, sure, but when you came to me with your angle, I kind of stepped into it. You were the first crack, I admitted. But the rest came on its own. She nodded. That's what gets me. I thought I was the only one who felt it was performative. I didn't know so many women felt actually used. I lit a match, and everyone else brought kindling. We sat on a nearby bench, watching the sidewalk traffic move past. The mountains loomed in the distance, half covered in snow. I could smell the roasted beans from the cafe behind us. I wasn't trying to be noble, I said quietly. I just wanted to burn something down. I know, she said. But the fire helped some people. For a while, we sat in that, the kind of silence that didn't feel heavy for once. You seeing your kids more? She asked. Yeah, I said. They're doing better. We're figuring out a new rhythm. She smiled gently. That's good. We talked for a few more minutes. When she stood up to leave, she hesitated, then placed a hand on my shoulder. You should do something for you, she said. Not to fix someone else. Not to get even. Just something that brings you back to who you were. After she left, I sat there for a while longer, thinking about that. Later that week, I started therapy. And not just to process the divorce, or the scandal, or the betrayal. I went because I wanted to know what kind of man I was when I wasn't chasing justice or proving a point. Because winning the war had emptied me. But healing? That was the real work. And I was finally ready to begin.